Ever wondered what made 1950s audiences flee theaters in terror? While today's horror relies on CGI gore, these atomic-age nightmares triggered actual fainting spells, theater walkouts, and midnight phone calls to psychiatrists. One film literally made its director face criminal charges, while another got banned in 4 countries after viewers reported recurring nightmares for weeks. Ready to discover the most disturbing horror films of the 1950s that your grandparents were too scared to talk about? The Blob, 1958. The Blob isn't just another cheesy monster movie. This Technicolor nightmare features an unstoppable alien mass that absorbs everything it touches, growing larger with each victim. Steve McQueen, in his first starring role, faces off against this formless terror that creeps, oozes, and consumes an entire small town. Behind the scenes, the production was just as bizarre as the film itself. The actual blob was made from silicone mixed with red dye, and it became so toxic during filming that crew members developed severe skin rashes. One cameraman was hospitalized after prolonged exposure. Director Irvin Yeworth, a religious filmmaker who usually made church promotional videos, took on this project to fund his ministry work, creating this accidental classic. What makes The Blob truly disturbing isn't just its monster, but the subtext. Released during peak Cold War paranoia, its faceless, consuming entity represented American fears of communist infiltration. The famous movie theater scene where the blob consumes an entire audience struck a nerve with viewers already anxious about mass attacks. Critics initially dismissed it as drive-in trash, but The Blob went on to gross over $4 million against its tiny $110,000 budget. Time magazine later called it the defining metaphor for unstoppable consumption in American cinema. The Blob itself, with its pulsing, glistening appearance, remains one of the most viscerally uncomfortable monsters ever put to film. Today's audiences might laugh at some aspects, but that theater sequence still makes viewers squirm in their seats. House on Haunted Hill, 1959. William Castle's masterpiece of psychological terror isn't just a haunted house movie. It's an experience designed to make you question your sanity. Vincent Price plays an eccentric millionaire who offers $10,000 to anyone who can survive a night in his supposedly haunted mansion. What follows is a masterclass in atmospheric dread and genuine psychological horror. Castle wasn't content with just making a scary movie. He pioneered theatrical gimmicks that literally attacked audiences. For House on Haunted Hill, he installed Emergo, a system of pulleys that would float a glow-in-the-dark skeleton over the audience during key scenes. In several theaters, this caused legitimate panic attacks, with multiple reports of viewers requiring medical attention after becoming convinced the ghost was real. The film's most disturbing element is its vat of acid in the basement, a horrific death trap that leads to one of cinema's most nightmarish dissolving scenes. This sequence was so graphic for its time that censors in the UK demanded cuts before allowing its release. Even today, the acid bath sequence remains shockingly effective. Despite being made for just $200,000, House on Haunted Hill raked in millions and cemented Castle's reputation as the king of horror gimmicks. Roger Ebert later called it, a film that understands fear isn't about what you see, but what you think you might see. Martin Scorsese included it in his personal list of the most frightening horror films ever made, specifically citing the acid scene as pure nightmare fuel that still works today. The Thing from Another World, 1951. This isn't just another alien invasion flick. The Thing from Another World gives us an intelligent plant-based creature that can reproduce itself using human blood. When it's discovered frozen in Arctic ice by researchers, what follows is a masterclass in claustrophobic terror as the alien picks them off one by one. Director Christian Nyby, with uncredited help from Howard Hawks, created a horror film that played directly into Red Scare paranoia. The Thing, with its ability to replicate and infiltrate, perfectly captured Cold War fears of communist infiltration. It was so effective that military personnel stationed at isolated Arctic bases reportedly requested transfers after screenings. The film's most disturbing moment comes when the scientists realize the Thing is reproducing using their blood supply. The imagery of blood-filled seed pods pulsating with new life hit audiences hard, with reports of viewers becoming physically ill during these sequences. The scene was considered so graphic that several southern states demanded it be removed entirely. Despite initial mixed reviews, the thing grossed over $2 million on a $400,000 budget. Its influence was enormous, inspiring everything from Alien to The X-Files. John Carpenter, who later remade it, called the original the perfect monster movie because it makes you afraid of something you can't even properly describe. The American Film Institute ranked it among the most heart-pounding films ever made, noting its unforgettable tension that builds to near unbearable levels. Curse of Frankenstein, 1957. Hammer Film's bloody reimagining of the Frankenstein story isn't just another monster movie, it's the film that forever changed horror with its unprecedented gore and psychological depravity. Peter Cushing plays a completely amoral Victor Frankenstein who murders without hesitation to further his experiments, while Christopher Lee portrays his pitiful, rage-filled creation. The production pushed boundaries that left censors apoplectic. Director Terence Fisher insisted on showing actual brain surgery footage, real blood, and explicit scenes of eye removal that had never appeared in mainstream cinema before. When British censors demanded cuts, producer Anthony Hines reportedly told them, "This is the future of horror. Get used to it." The film's most disturbing sequence shows Frankenstein deliberately murdering his mentor, Professor Bernstein, to harvest his brain. The calculated, emotionless way Cushing performs this deed shocked audiences used to seeing clear heroes and villains. This portrayal of scientific amorality hit particularly hard during the era of nuclear anxiety, when many questioned whether scientists had ethical limits. British censors gave it an X rating, while American critics denounced it as sadistic garbage and an abomination. Nevertheless, it grossed over 10 times its modest £65,000 budget and launched Hammer's horror dynasty. Martin Scorsese later called it the first truly adult horror film, while Christopher Lee credited it with removing the kid gloves from monster movies forever. Modern horror giants like Guillermo del Toro and Mike Flanagan have cited it as the film that made them realize horror could be both beautiful and deeply disturbing. The Bad Seed, 1956. The Bad Seed isn't a monster movie. It's something far more unsettling, a portrait of evil wearing the face of an innocent child. Patty McCormack delivers a bone-chilling performance as Rhoda, a sociopathic 8-year-old girl who murders without remorse to get what she wants, while her mother slowly realizes the monster she's raised. Director Mervyn LeRoy fought the studio over the film's disturbing implications that evil could be inherited and present in children. When a psychologist consultant warned the film might damage viewers' perceptions of children, LeRoy reportedly responded, "That's exactly what I want. I want them to look at sweet little girls differently after this." The film's most profoundly disturbing scene involves Rhoda burning a handyman alive after he discovers evidence of her crimes. The sequence uses sound rather than visuals to convey the horror, with the man's screams playing over shots of Rhoda calmly arranging her hair. This approach proved so effective that several theaters reported audience members becoming physically ill during this scene. The Bad Seed caused genuine public concern, with parent groups protesting its release and psychologists writing about the Bad Seed syndrome to describe increased parental anxiety. Despite controversy, it earned $4.1 million on a $1 million budget and received 4 Academy Award nominations. Alfred Hitchcock supposedly called it the most psychologically disturbing film Hollywood has ever produced, while Stephen King credited it with inspiring his own child-centered horror. Modern filmmakers like Jordan Peele have cited its ability to make the audience question their instinctive trust of children as revolutionary. Night of the Demon, 1957. Night of the Demon isn't just supernatural horror, it's existential dread made manifest. When American psychologist John Holden arrives in England to debunk a satanic cult, he becomes marked for death by a summoned demon that will kill him in exactly 3 days. As rational explanations fail, his sanity unravels as the deadline approaches. Director Jacques Tourneur, known for subtle psychological horror, battled constantly with producer Hal Chester, who demanded the demon be shown explicitly. Their infamous shouting matches nearly shut down production. Tourneur wanted the demon left to imagination, while Chester insisted on showing it. The compromise resulted in brief glimpses that are more disturbing for their restraint. The film's most nightmarish sequence involves the protagonist being chased through woods by an invisible force that manipulates the environment around him. The sound design, featuring whispered chanting and unnatural wind, created such atmospheric dread that multiple viewers reported feeling physically cold during these scenes. One London theater even received complaints that the air conditioning was too high during the sequence, though it wasn't even turned on. Initially released to mixed reviews, Night of the Demon has since been recognized as a masterpiece of psychological horror. Director Martin Scorsese included it in his list of the 11 scariest horror films of all time, calling it the perfect fusion of rational and irrational terror. Stephen King was so influenced by it that he incorporated its central passing the curse concept into his novel It. The British Film Institute eventually ranked it among the greatest British films ever made, noting its uniquely disturbing atmosphere that gets under your skin and stays there. Invasion of the Body Snatchers, 1956. Invasion of the Body Snatchers isn't just sci-fi horror. It's a nightmare about losing your identity while no one believes you. When small-town doctor Miles Bennell discovers alien seed pods are replacing people with emotionless duplicates while they sleep, he finds himself increasingly isolated as everyone around him is replaced. Director Don Siegel created such a powerful allegory for conformity that both political sides claimed it supported their views. The right saw it as anti-communist, while the left interpreted it as anti-McCarthyism. Siegel later said, "I wanted them both to be disturbed by it. That's what horror should do." The film's most disturbing sequence shows Miles hiding with his girlfriend Becky in an abandoned mine. When he briefly leaves and returns, he realizes from a single emotionless reaction that Becky has been replaced while he was gone. This moment of intimate betrayal hit audiences so hard that psychologists reported patients describing body snatcher syndrome, where they became convinced loved ones had somehow changed. The studio forced Siegel to add a hopeful framing sequence, which he despised. Even with this compromise, the film was so effective at creating paranoia that some theaters reported audience members accusing each other of being pod people after screenings. Despite mixed initial reviews, it grossed over $3 million on its tiny $380,000 budget. The Library of Congress selected it for preservation in the National Film Registry for being culturally significant, while the American Film Institute ranked it as one of the most thrilling films ever made. Modern horror master Jordan Peele has called it the template for horror that's truly psychologically destabilizing. Eyes Without a Face, 1960. Eyes Without a Face isn't just horror, it's poetic nightmare fuel. This French-Italian film follows a brilliant surgeon who kidnaps young women to surgically remove their faces in attempts to restore his daughter's disfigured visage. Beneath its art house veneer lies one of cinema's most disturbing body horror tales. Director Georges Franju deliberately juxtaposed beautiful cinematography with grotesque imagery. When theatrical distributor Loptex saw the graphic face removal surgery scene, they nearly pulled funding entirely. Franju refused to cut it, reportedly stating, "This is not horror. This is the terrible beauty of destruction." The infamous central surgery sequence shows in clinical detail as a woman's face is cut away from her skull while she's still alive. Shot with actual surgical consultants for accuracy, this 5-minute scene caused mass walkouts and fainting spells. At the Edinburgh Film Festival, 7 viewers reportedly required medical attention after this sequence. The French press dubbed it an abomination, while British censors demanded heavy cuts. Despite its controversial nature, Eyes Without a Face gained a cult following and eventually grossed 10 times its modest budget through international distribution. Initially dismissed by mainstream critics, it was later championed by film scholars as a masterpiece. Director Pedro Almodóvar called it the most beautiful horror film ever made, while Guillermo del Toro cited it as a major influence on Pan's Labyrinth. Billy Idol even named his hit song after it. Modern horror directors like Mike Flanagan have praised its perfect fusion of beauty and absolute revulsion as establishing a template for artistic horror. Peeping Tom, 1960. Peeping Tom isn't just a slasher precursor. It's a film so psychologically disturbing it destroyed its director's career. The story follows Mark Lewis, a cameraman who murders women while filming their terrified final expressions, creating the ultimate documentary of fear. Unlike most horror, it forces you into the killer's perspective, making you complicit in his voyeurism. Director Michael Powell, previously known for prestigious films, faced complete industry blacklisting after its release. Critic Derek Malcolm revealed that Powell was ostracized by the British film industry after making it and never made another significant film in his home country again. Powell later said, "I made a film that showed the sickness of voyeurism, and they punished me for showing them their own reflection." The film's most psychologically scarring element is its murder weapon, a sharpened tripod leg with a mirror attached so victims can watch themselves die in terror. This device was so disturbing that British censors demanded multiple cuts, while one influential critic called it the sickest and filthiest film I remember seeing. The sequence where Mark shows a child actress recordings of his father's psychological experiments on him creates a level of psychological discomfort that remains shocking today. Initially, Peeping Tom was a commercial disaster that destroyed Powell's career. British critics called it perverted, depraved, and the nastiest film ever made. It was effectively banned from wide distribution until Martin Scorsese championed its re-release in the 1970s, calling it as important as Psycho in the development of the modern horror film. Roger Ebert later gave it 4 stars, writing, "The movies make us into voyeurs. We sit in the dark, watching other people's lives. It is the bargain the cinema strikes with us, but it's rarely acknowledged with the unsettling honesty of Peeping Tom." Diabolik, 1955. Diabolik isn't just a horror thriller, it's psychological warfare against the audience. This French masterpiece follows a fragile woman and her husband's mistress as they plot to murder him, only for his body to disappear, and increasingly terrifying events suggest he might not be dead after all. Director Henri-Georges Clouzot crafted a film so tense that Alfred Hitchcock reportedly said, "This is the film I wish I had made." Clouzot, nicknamed the French Hitchcock, created such an atmosphere of dread during production that star Vera Clouzot, his wife, suffered heart palpitations requiring medical intervention. The film's marketing included a now famous no spoilers campaign with posters reading, "Don't be diabolical. Don't destroy the illusion of your friends who haven't seen it. Don't tell them what you've seen. Thank you for them." The film's most unforgettable sequence takes place in a bathroom, where a supposedly dead man rises from a bathtub. This scene was so effective that reports emerged of viewers suffering cardiac incidents during screenings. In Paris, 2 viewers allegedly died of heart attacks, leading to a brief investigation into whether the film should be pulled from theaters. Clouzot dismissed these concerns, reportedly saying, "Cinema should make you forget you are sitting in a theater. It should grab you by the throat." Despite its disturbing nature, Diabolik was both a critical and commercial triumph, grossing over 50 times its modest budget internationally. It won the Prix Louis Deluc for Best French Film and is now considered one of the greatest psychological horror films ever made. Directors from William Friedkin to David Fincher have cited it as a major influence. Friedkin called it the most terrifying film I had ever seen, while Hitchcock studied it closely before making Psycho. Its infamous bathtub scene has been referenced in countless films, cementing Diabolik as the ultimate psychological horror experience of the 1950s. So, which of these disturbing classics do you think would still terrify audiences today? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. While modern horror relies on digital gore and jump scares, these psychological nightmares from the atomic age worked their terror deep into viewers' minds, creating fears that lasted long after the credits rolled. Could these older films actually be more disturbing than today's horror, precisely because they forced your imagination to do the most terrifying work? Let us know what you think.